And if you don't mind, I'll demonstrate. First off, you start your knees and your hips at the top of the swing, lower part of your body. Arms and hands follow, bringing you into position to hit.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back to the Course Language Podcast, and what a week it is to have you staying with us or joining us for the very first time. If you're a new member or an existing, you cannot help but be excited because the third major of the year is upon us, and we've got a heap to discuss in relation to the 126th US Open from Shinnecock Hills. What a venue it is, and no better person I'd want to be speaking to it all about than the man who played on tour, won on tour, teaches others to do the same. He commentates on the tour as well. Ryan Lynch. Hello, mate.
Hello, Sammy. Great to be here. Very exciting week. It doesn't get any better than this. We've had this one circled all year. This is as good a US Open test as you will see on the router. We've got Adam Scott, who's about to compete in his 100th major in a row. Only the second player in history to have ever done that, behind Jack Nicklaus, who played 146. Geez, it'd be impressive for him to get there. We actually speak to Tina Maio in this episode, who has been his longtime Osteo, to give us a bit of an insight into how he's actually got this far and what it takes, Sammy. But very exciting episode coming up.
All your favourite segments are back: the Scramble, the Mulligan, of course, and we're going to deep dive into the 126 US Open. There's a whole lot of storylines that we want to get involved in. Scotty Scheffler, the Aussies. We're going to give our tips. You're going to tell us the holes that are going to decide the tournament and break down this incredible golf course that is Shinnecock Hills. I'm very, very excited for you to set us up in the best way possible for this major, Lynchy.
I'm looking forward to it, mate. It's also obviously the 20-year anniversary of our last Aussie to win the US Open, Geoff Ogilvy, who I've got a good question, I think Scramble question coming up later on, in terms of this is a true Open Championship. So is the Open Championship. But the winners of this event don't get the same length of category. Geoff Ogilvy is out there trying to qualify for this week as a past champion. Certainly in every other major, he would be already in the field. So curious to hear your thoughts on all of that as well as we get into the episode, Sammy. But have you been playing much golf yourself this week?
I actually have had 3 rounds since our last, and I'd been very bullish about the form that I'd been in because I'd stopped caring, all of the new mental approach to the game that I've been taking. Suffice to say that the form line may have just dipped a little bit. I think I had a 33-pointer in a Thursday comp which wasn't too bad, but the conditions were a lot better for scoring than that. We tried to get the full round completed on Saturday. We had a hole to play, but the water had pulled up to be just too deep, and I think I was only at 29 points at that stage, so it wasn't going to be a great score that day either. But I was lucky enough to play this week, Lynchy, at Yarra Yarra for the very first time. The Sanctum Club invited me to play, and they've got a championship going on at the moment. It was a 2-ball Ambrose. Had a great bunch of blokes that I was playing with today as well. But I'm trying to work my way through playing all the Sandbelt courses, and I was able to tick off another today with Yarra Yarra. What a facility that is. What a great golf course. Some par 3s that are absolutely brilliant, and par 5s that say if you want to take us on in 2, you better be accurate because they really do penalise you if you're a little short or a little left or a little right. But I've been there a few times for the Mick Fanning Charity Day with Callaway, but first time playing it, and I absolutely loved it. We had a combined handicap of 8, I think, and we finished up 1 over for our 2-ball Ambrose. So we weren't in sparkling form, but we had a couple of moments that big thanks to Sanctum Club for inviting us along to that. But I have started.
I was just about to say, Tom Doak did an incredible refurb and change the routing of that golf course, and it's only going to get better with the maturity and with the native grasses coming through over the next 10 to 15, 20 years. It's a long-term project, that one. But you're exactly right. It's the type of golf course not too dissimilar to Shinnecock this week in terms of it's a second shot golf course to where you need to be in the right spots. You need to know where the pin is. There are a lot of funnels in where the ball rolls off and repels away from the greens. So, and a lot of options around the greens as well. But favourite hole out there, mate? I'm curious on that.
Oh, that's a very, very good question. I'd have to come back to you because I'm not really great at remembering them all, as you know. But I really loved the par 5s. Mm-hmm. I thought they were really. I mean, we didn't birdie any of them, but I was having a bit of trouble off the tee today, but I was really having a good day with fairway woods, with the Callaway fairway woods that I'm rolling with. So I was pretty happy about that. I love the par 3 15th, and I had accepted the challenge to film every par 3 for the rest of my life until I get a hole in one that we spoke about on last week's episode of Course Language, thanks to Callaway. And on that hole, which was where we always stand for the challenge with Callaway when we do the Mick Fanning Charity Golf Day, I had a putter. I had my club up in the air and about to run up towards the hole in celebration because I thought that it was on. I thought we were on. 129 metres pin, because it's a multi-tiered green and there's a fairly steep slope that goes up. As you know, the pin was behind the first bunker on the left, in front of the bunker behind that one. So it wasn't a great landing spot, but I landed it on that upslope and had it rolling back with a 9-iron with a bit of riz on it as well. I couldn't have struck it any better, and I was up. I thought, this is it. This is happening. And it just meandered its way down to about the left and gave me about a foot and a half for birdie. But
so close.
I thought that was the day. Yeah, and I missed the putt, by the way. Lucky my partner. There's my confessional for the week.
Half?
Oh, there was a fair curve on it. Like it was a big breaking right to left.
It's a 30-centimetre ruler, mate. Come on.
It was a big breaking right to left. It might have been 2 foot.
Yeah, nice.
Luckily, my partner Jason did a good job in making the birdie putt.
Fives out there. Number 8. Number 9, number 16, and number 18, if I'm not mistaken. But
well, we finished on 16, and we did birdie that one actually. I got a 3-wood just off the front edge of the front right edge of the green, and from about 220. So I was very, very happy.
Work,
I absolutely smoked that one.
We're very fortunate.
Handicap at 13.2, so that's where we're tracking at the moment.
Nice.
Have
work,
you played?
Mate. I haven't played since I got back from Scotland. So due to dust the clubs off, still haven't got my new Callaway CBs out on the turf yet. So hopefully this week, but been very, very, very busy trying to get back in front after a very, very enjoyable couple of weeks away playing golf, to be fair.
Now, have you been moonlighting? Have you been just spreading yourself around town? Have you?
I have actually got invited to head over to the At.it podcast today to chat all things golf. So got a couple of reps in before this one, to be fair, and very good fun over there. They had myself, Lucas Michelle on, who's obviously played the Masters and the US Open himself at Winged Foot, a couple of the COVID Masters, and in fact the COVID year he won the Mid-Am. So that was a fun conversation that we had over there. So you can check it out. And hopefully a couple of their listeners jumping across to listen to us here as well this week, mate. But some really big news in Australian golf this week.
Yeah, well, on two fronts, and it's all around the Australian Open. And there's a little bit of live stuff we'll get to as well in just a moment. But this has been a massive week for Australian golf. And the first story that came through just as we finished recording last week. So if you're wondering why we didn't talk about this on last week's episode of Course Language, thanks to Callaway, it's because we'd already recorded, and then we were all about to tuck ourselves into bed, and then the messages started to come through thick and fast. But the big news is that Golf Australia confirmed last week on Tuesday that that the partnership between them and the DP World Tour now and the PGA Tour is going to continue to elevate the Capital.com Australian Open. This is from the PGA's website that I wanted to read this because it shows their commitment to this. So we know that the Australian Open has been co-sanctioned between the PGA Tour of Australasia and the DP World Tour for a while now, but the PGA Tour jumping on to be a partner of it. It'll cover 2027, 2028, 2029. This new agreement's going to enable the National Championship to still be co-sanctioned. It's going to continue on that momentum, a significant growth period within Australian golf right now. It's the first time that the PGA Tour has formally partnered with Golf Australia, and it's going to ensure that the Capital.com Australian Open is going to receive a significant prize boost. It's going to have its own window, which means that there won't be any PGA Tour events happening at the same time, Lynchy. And so it'll have a really special spot within the golfing calendar, which it used to do many years ago when some of the greatest to ever play this game, the Gary players, the Jack Nicklaus, we know Rory, Jordan Spieth, these guys who have won it in the past, Rory coming back again this year. So this is pretty big. And I think it's off the back of maybe the biggest ever Australian Open in the history of it in 2026.
Yeah, exactly right. Couldn't have said it any better myself, mate. You've basically laid it all out there. Essentially what is happening is that the US Tour already is in a strategic alliance with the DP World Tour. So the fact that this is a DP World Tour event, a co-sanctioned event, will just mean that the US Tour is propping up the purse to ensure that it is at the minimum threshold to have it as a DP World Tour event. So my understanding at the moment is that it's a minimum of $2 million US. We were around $3 million last year, just over. So it should bump it up pretty significantly into sort of the over 3.5 million Aussie, maybe more depending on what the start of the season looks like. But clearly great to have the US Tour backing, and it feels like the rest of the world is kind of starting to move into that space. But great news for the Australian Open. Obviously, the other announcement is that the Aussie Open will be moving to PK next year, so we'll have had a run of the Royal Melbourne, Kingston Heath this year, obviously, and Peninsula Kingswood next year before we go to North Adelaide, which will be interesting in itself.
So I'm going to ask you about PK. The one question I had for you in regards to with the PGA Tour essentially jumping on as a partner, it's not co-sanctioned, but they are partnering with Golf Australia. So to me, the big things that stand out there are last year or at last Australian Open, we were seeing players who were at Bermuda. Texting or tweeting or sending messages around or social media posts, Max Homer being probably the most notable of those, I got to get to Australia. At that same time too, though, there was another DP World Tour event happening in South Africa. Is the blue sky here that everybody's in agreement that when the Australian Open's on, then there is no other tournament of DP World Tour or PGA Tour happening at that time so that the Australian Open has clear air?
Hopefully, and I'm sure that's what Golf Australia are hoping for as well. I mean, there were too many events on last year, and you're exactly right. All the buzz online, certainly in the circles that I follow, we're all talking about the Australian Open, not necessarily the whatever the event was. Is it Bermuda? The one that Hideki won?
Bahamas?
The Bahamas, yeah, it's the Bahamas, not Bermuda. But anyway,
starts with B, so we're
Bahamas, yeah. Look, I mean, let's just hope that that's the case. Best case scenario, we get our own platform, we get our own time of the year that is the Australian Open's time of the year. And if you're Max Homer or you're any other player that want to play some of these world-renowned golf courses, then you've got to come play the Australian Open.
We had a great field at the most recent. One of my highlights of that, and I'll never forget it in my life, was standing there, standing on the other side of the fairway when Rory and Adam Scott were waiting to play their shot. Geoff Ogilvy was up on the tee, finishing out on 18 on East, but 18 of the composite. Back on the tee was Cam Smith and Danny Willett. So I was standing on the fairway with 5 major winners, is what I like to say. But that was testament to the strength of the field. We had some of the very best from the Live Tour here. I think David Hughes, who'd been PJ at the PGA Championship, Wako Neiman as well. So Siwoo Kim was part of the field as well. So this was a stacked field. Would we be expecting now that when this partnership starts in 2027 that we will get a stronger field than what we had this most recent Australian Open?
I think time will tell. The Australian Open at Royal Melbourne, at Kingston Heath, I mean, they are two truly world-renowned golf courses, as is PK. I think that having the Australian Open elevates that venue, that facility on the world stage as well, which I'm really proud of. I think PK can absolutely grow in reputation by holding the Australian Open. Time will tell. I mean, we've still got a very high tax rate in terms of players coming to play these events. They're still probably going to be requiring a little bit of here come play our event money. So time will tell. Fingers crossed. If it's got its own spot in the calendar, we'll certainly get the best of the best in terms of the DP World Tour guys wanting to get off to a really good start. The difficulty, obviously, with this potential 2-tier system that the PGA Tour are about to run is that it does kind of sit the DP World Tour in a bit of an awkward position. So the more likely thing is that we're going to be seeing stars of the future come in to play the Australian Open, more so than the current day stars coming down to play the Australian Open, unless they get paid. So, but as I said, the fact that PK is having its opportunity to shine is nothing but good things. And it sounds like it's going to be coming back to Melbourne every other year, which is great.
And Lynchy, the other big news that you've just alluded to, Peninsula Kingswood, 2027 hosts of the Australian Open. This is massive.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. beautiful venue. As I said, it'll get elevated by holding the Australian Open. You were saying earlier on that there's been some tensions there from time to time, but this venue absolutely deserves an Australian Open. If you don't know, there's 2 courses at Peninsula Kingswood, the north and the south. There's incredible wildlife, incredible flora, fauna, all native bushland and stuff, which could have been a bit of a difficulty in terms of getting crowds around the place, but they've built themselves a composite course, or they've got a composite routing, which, if you don't mind, I'll read right now.
Please do.
So the first hole will be the first of the north. They'll skip the second hole of the north. They'll go into the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th on the north side. They'll then jump to the 17th north, and that's a par 5 up and over the hill. That'll be the 9th hole. The 10th hole will be the 18th north, and then they jump across to the south. So they'll play the 1st, 2nd, across to the 8th south, then up the 9th, 10th. They'll play the 11th south, jump across and finish on the 17th, which is a par 3, and into the 18th south. And we know the way that hole runs, that the sun tends to set directly down the line of that hole. So some beautiful vistas if you get it at the right time of day. But
Gary Lisbon's going to be rubbing his hands together.
Absolutely. So a fascinating run. It'll be the first time that an event of that magnitude certainly has been held on that composite layout. So exciting times for Peninsula Kingswood, and certainly deserves it.
They're going to be hosting a Players Series event as well, which I'm sure was part of the back and forth in the negotiations, which have been a long time coming. But North and South continually creep up the top 100 list in this country, and for good reason. I had the North as one of my top 5 courses the other week. It's one of the hardest that I've ever played. I can't wait to see what they do with the composite. There's probably some logistical things, Lynchy. Like, I'm sure that they've already figured out that they'll run courtesy buses, hopefully down there, to get as many patrons to that area of Melbourne as they can, down towards Frankston. So as long as all those bases are covered, it is, and you know full well, because Ban Lynch McDade have got a set up there as well. This is one of the preeminent facilities in Victoria. So I'm wrapped for them. They've got a great crew that are all part of it there. They keep the course immaculate. It's going to show up spectacularly, as you've just said, and I think if you can sort out a couple of the things that have probably been held against it in terms of location and how we fit the crowds in and how we get them there, it's going to be a brilliant Australian Open, no doubt.
Absolutely, mate. Couldn't agree with you more.
Well, Lynchy, we just got one little thing to get away before we get into our preview of the 126 US Open, but we should get around the grounds and find out what's been happening in golf this week.
The sweet taste of victory for the very first time.
Well, Lynchy, we'll start with the PGA Tour and Bud Cauley. I mean, this is, I think, over 260 PGA Tour appearances, and he finally gets his very first win. Long overdue, but he's the winner of the Canadian Open.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, turned pro in 2011. He was an absolute rock star, superstar out of college. The world was his oyster. He was compared to the Justin Thomases and had that kind of repertoire. I mean, this guy has toiled away for so long. He's 36 years old now. It was mentioned quite a bit, but had a horrible car accident in 2018. He's had complication after complication after complication from that point onwards. And to go out and win the Canadian Open, a national open, just spectacular stuff. Absolutely thrilled for him.
Yeah, and to the couple of guys behind him are pretty handy as well. Major winner in Matt Fitzpatrick, who was 2 shots back, and 3 shots back, Victor Hovland, who's a FedEx champion as well. So he kept some big dogs at bay, and congratulations to him.
Yeah.
DP
there was a little bit of news out of there. Wyndham Clark. I'm curious on your feedback. Did you see what he did?
Well, Wyndham Clark is the Mulligan. This week. Wyndham Clark is the Mulligan. I mean, there is something to be said about going and having some respect for the country and the place in which you're playing a tournament. I actually really like Wyndham Clark, as I've said a few times, but he's going to get the Mulligan this week for rocking up in a USA hockey jersey in front of a pro-Canadian crowd at the Canadian Open. He's just inviting what came his way, and he got what he probably should have expected coming his way. I reckon if he had his time over again, he might have thought differently about that. Do you think he thought that it would be seen as because what did you make of the reaction that he got from the crowd?
Well, I mean, obviously, he's throwing back the gold medal in the ice hockey that the US beat Canada in. And I think it was a bit tongue-in-cheek. He was trying to get a hold of a jersey so as that he could put it on for that par 3. And he ended up finding somebody in the crowd, paying him for his jersey, and he's going to send it back to him. So I think he knew exactly what he was doing. I'm not a huge fan of Wyndham after everything that happened at Oakmont last year. I think... But this adds a layer of character, I think, in terms of just a reason to kind of get your feelings or give you an emotion when you see somebody. I liked it, especially in a President's Cup year. I just hope that a couple of the Canadians or that Geoff Ogilvy can put a couple of the Canadians up against Wyndham Clark. I think it's good for the sport. I think he copped his right whack. I'm not sure whether or not he regretted it on Sunday or not, but good for the atmosphere, and I thought it was a pretty impressive birdie that he made on that par 3 under all that scrutiny, under that pressure.
If you're going to do that, you'd want to have a good hole, and to his credit, he did. Do you think he's leaning into his villain role? Is that what you think he's doing?
Very potentially, and if so, good. Like, I can start liking you if you want to be the villain. I'm happy you're already the villain in my head. I can start getting around that sort of stuff. But obnoxious behaviour, it must be said. I just have to tip my cap and chuckle at it. I don't mind it.
I reckon, because I love the theatre. But part of me says, well, are you being theatrical or are you being disrespectful? Yeah. If a Canadian player did that in front of maybe a New York American crowd, I think they would have been far worse that they copped, as we saw the scenes at the Ryder Cup last year. But look, I'm all for the theatre. I just reckon maybe...
Certainly becomes more interesting because of it. I think he becomes more interesting. Whether you like him more or less, you're probably going to like him more if you're an American, maybe less for an international. But I thought it added certainly a bit of spark to what was another tough scene for the Canadian Open, kind of jammed in between Memorial and the US Open.
No DP World Tour event this week, Lynchy, but the International Series, Morocco, part of the Asian Tour, was on, and some interesting names that took to the field. Taichi Ko, the winner at 19 under, but the man he beat, I don't know how many Asian Tour events that Bubba Watson's played in his time.
Yeah, finding a little bit of form, Bubba Watson.
Yes.
18 under par. Yeah, very strange to see him find a little bit of form. I'd be curious. I've played in Morocco, played the Moroccan Open many years ago, not at this golf course, though, I don't believe. So I imagine that it was pretty wide open and Bubba could shape it around the place. Or maybe he's just healthy and fit for the first time in a while. And Elvis Smiley, best of the Aussies, 14 under par, finishing tie for 5th. Great final round, 7 under par after a difficult opening round of 74. So he was in contention this week.
Kevin Yuan in the top 10 as well. Good for him on that very handy result. All right, Lynchy, it's an abbreviated around the grounds this week because we need to get stuck into the 126th US Open on course language, all thanks to Callaway, our US Open preview. Shinnecock Hills, what a venue this is. Long Island doesn't get much better. This is an iconic course.
Now comes the decisive shot of this championship.
Good contact.
Looks good. There it is. Do you believe it?
Just about perfect. Expect anything different?
The US Open inspires generations, and it has for 125 years.
I've been dreaming of this moment since I was 10 years old.
Plays a game unfamiliar to all of us.
That's what you call limping home.
Honestly, if you haven't already, go to YouTube and just go and have a look at the undulations and the movement of the earth on this golf course. This is right up there. This might be maybe my number one. I mean, obviously, Cypress Point, Pine Valley, I mean, just next door at the National Golf Links of America. There's so many great golf courses on Long Island, but this is absolutely one for the bucket list. Remembering back to Retief Goosen winning here, and they lost the course. They lost the course in 2018 as well when it was held here again. This golf course requires just such precision iron play. The greens are, for most part, they're repelling. There's a lot of short grass around these greens, some wider fairways than what we're used to seeing in typical US Open setups, which is great. I think the USGA is leaning into what makes these great golf courses so great. But Retief Goosen, going back to that memory, it's one of my earliest memories or one of my fondest memories of the US Open. Retief Goosen going out having 22 or 24 putts in that final round. The golf course was absolutely brutal. None of the players could get anywhere near it. I think the Saturday round, the average score was somewhere around 78, similar to the final round. This is as difficult a test as what golf gets right here for one of the most difficult events on the calendar. And this one has been really circled for me for the whole year. I've just been so excited to see Shinnecock Hills. You've got some incredibly long par threes. I think the stretch that you're going to be looking for, or I mean, the whole course is going to be brilliant and you'll be watching it from Thursday to Sunday. But number 9, which is a blind fairway to hit into an upslope and elevated green, another blind second shot. You've got 10, 11, just incredible rolling land. And if you haven't already seen it, just go out and just do a little bit of research on this golf course, because it is truly, I think it's well and truly ranked inside the top 5 in the country, well and truly inside the top 10 to 15 golf courses on the planet. And I think probably the best test that the US Open has to offer. I cannot speak highly enough about the quality of this golf course and how excited I am, Sammy.
So founded in 1891, it was one of the 5 clubs that helped establish the USGA. It's been paramount to the game ever since. This is the 6th time that it has hosted. So 1896, 1986, 95, 2004. You mentioned Retief Goosen and Brooks Koepka in 2018, which was actually the first major that Lucas Herbert ever played in. And we'll speak about him in just a moment. But the redesign in 1931, so they made it a strategic test, and they wanted the wind to be as contributing a factor to anything because of the way that it changes in where that course is located. So I look at it from the layman's perspective, Lynchy, and I say this is to me, I don't know all the US courses, but I look at that course and I say this feels like an Open Championship, US Open, just because of the course. It's open. It's the elements are going to, the wind is going to be, if there is wind, it's going to have a huge say on what happens to your golf ball and how you manage that. It looks links-ish. I know it's not a links course per se, but it looks links-ish to the untrained eye. I just get very excited. I love the contrast just visually between the brown grass and the green grass, and you can see the coastal setting in behind it. I think it's going to look spectacular on television. I can't remember 2018 as vividly and 2004 as you, but I'm so excited to see how this sets up visually. You always say that the golf course is as big a star, and this is a course that to me looks like a star of a course. Some a bit nondescript and it could be anywhere. This is a course you look at it and you know. So and those venues are what majors should be played on.
Absolutely. And you're right. It's as close to a links probably as you're going to get in the US. Now, there are some newer courses, obviously, that have come up that are proper links land as well. But the wind is going to be up, hopefully, this week. Fingers crossed we get a real difficult US Open. Brooks Koepka won in 2018 with 1 over par, I believe. So one of the last over par winning championships. You're exactly right. There's a lot of firm ground. There's a lot of short grass. And when you've got short grass as a professional, it gives you options. And options is where doubt starts to creep in. So when you miss a green, it highlights the miss because the ball just continues to run further and further away from the putting surface. And then when you are sitting down there, usually below the level of the green, you've got putter as an option, hybrid as an option. Do you want to bump and run an 8-iron? Do you want to fly the ball up there? All of these options, what this game is all about. And it's what creates interest from a viewer's perspective, because when you've got options, you have doubt. Did I choose the right one? Is this the right club from a player's perspective? So we saw a lot of iron play from Brooks Koepka in that final round in 2018. There were a lot of different names up there jumping around, and Retief Goosen in 2004, Corey Pavin before that, and Raymond Floyd before that. This is one of the wider golf courses that they'll play in the US Open. I think the stat last time they played, it was around 70% of players hit the fairways, which is a really big number for a US Open. But then in contrast to that, to highlight how much of a second shot golf course this is, only 58% of players hit the greens. So it's really, really difficult to hit the greens around this place. So incredibly excited about this week. Those who remember Phil Mickelson putting his ball off the 13th hole, he hit his putt. His ball was still moving. It was about to go 40, 50 yards away. He hit it while it was still moving. Those of you who will remember that, those are the types of the moments that we sometimes see at Shinnecock. It gets under the player's skin. Similarly, in 2004, Mickelson hit it in the fairway, in the greenside bunker on 17, proceeded to make double bogey and ended up losing to Retief Goosen by 1. Retief hit it in the same bunker on 17 and ended up making up and down for par. So Mickelson has had some pretty interesting moments at this golf course, and I think this will be a real war of attrition. This is a really hilly golf course. Mentally, you're going to have to be switched on for all 72 holes. And just in terms of the type of player that I think is going to succeed here, it'll be a really mentally fit, strong-minded player this week who's really on with their irons, and you can get some really smelly chips and some awkward putts.
So what you're talking about, the mental test of this course, because it's going to break down some players if you're not feeling as mentally together as you could possibly be. We saw that Aaron Rai, there's no one calmer and cooler on the golf course than he and what he was able to do at Aronimink. Is there someone with the demeanour and the personality that you can see in the field that it might not be one of your selections, but somebody who you think has that mental aptitude and fortitude to not let it get under their skin and to be able to ride the ebbs and flows that this course is going to give at you?
Yeah, look, I think we mentioned him off the top, but there are two storylines here this week, and I've got a third storyline that I'd like to read into the record. But this is Scotty. The two Scotties are the two storylines in my eyes. Obviously, You've got Adam Scott playing his 100th consecutive major, and I think he will play well this week. I think he's my top Aussie. He's been there. He's done that. He performed really well last year at Oakmont. He's got the demeanour. He's got the ability. He's got everything in terms of statistically speaking. His ball striking has been incredible this year. If he can get the putter going this week, I think he's a real chance to be there on Sunday. And then you've obviously got Scotty Scheffler, the other Scotty, probably a bigger storyline, to be fair. Could have led with this if we weren't Australian, but he's going for his career Grand Slam. And talk about a bloke who is obviously mentally fit and mentally strong. A great ball striker, probably one of the greatest short games we've ever seen in the game. Certainly, currently one of the greatest one of the greatest short game artists that we've got. So, as long as we saw him a couple of weeks ago, I think he'll have the week off. Obviously, this week not playing the Canadian Open, but as long as those mini tanties that we saw last week to Ted Scott don't carry over to this week, I think he's got a great chance of potentially creating some history this week.
Well, you put your finger on the fact that he's now got the 2 kid as opposed to the 1 kid issue, and that's far less sleep than you had with the 1 kid than you have with the 2 kid. So you've identified what could be the major contributing factor for there being just a little grumpy, Scotty Scheffler. Did we not see this when he blew up Deluxe at the Scottish Open? Did he not go and win the Open after that? I'm wondering here.
Exactly
I've got
right.
a theory.
Yeah.
Is he getting it out of his system? Is this what he does? Is this what Scotty does? Does he just go, right, any bit of agitation and frustration and anger, I'm going to let it all out in the build-up? Didn't play the Canadian Open. I'm sure he's been up there getting around, and now he just comes in very zen. He's got it out of his system. He's had his tanty. It's gone. And here he comes to try and claim his Grand Slam on what would be his 30th birthday and Father's Day.
Yeah.
So if that's not planets aligning for Scotty Scheffler, I don't know what is. Lynchy, before we give our tips, the holes that will matter most.
As we just kept saying, this is going to be one of the most brutal tests. Fingers crossed. It's always a really difficult test. Very few players under par regularly at this golf course for all of the reasons that we've mentioned. Very windy. Professionals really feel a little more uncomfortable when they can't see the landing area, and very regularly around this golf course you can't see the landing area. By that I mean you can see the pin on the hill, or you've got a target in the distance, but you can't actually see where the ball is pitching. So this is a really difficult golf course, and I really, really hope that it gets really nasty out there and it is a real brute. And I hope the winning score is around, that even par sort of number. I really want to see a little bit of carnage. But my third storyline is that if we don't get any conditions and if the wind doesn't blow, time and again, as I said, this golf course punishes you, and it is the toughest in the toughest major. It feels like at the moment, as we've been talking about for a long time on this podcast, that the acknowledgement of an equipment rollback is gaining a little bit of momentum around the people that matter. We heard Fred Ridley come out and talk about this. We've heard the USGA comment on this. So the third storyline I've got this week is if we do get a really low score, let's say we get an 8 under or a 9 under winning this US Open, does it finally highlight what is clearly required on the men's side of professional golf to ensure that these great venues remain a real test for the best male players in the game? Some of the tee boxes at this golf course are pushed so far back to get the ball into the sections and into the quadrants that Corey Pavin was hitting them into in 1995. So the storyline I've got coming into this week is does a low winning score actually push this conversation into hyperdrive, and does it get the conversation sort of moving into this equipment rollback that I think the men's game really needs?
What are the holes that matter?
Oh, look, there's so many of them. I know that the second hole is a 250-yard par 3. As I said, I think the 9th, 10th, 11th is a real stretch that you want to watch. The back nine's just magnificent. But great golf courses you want to watch from the get-go on Thursday, and you'll watch and you'll be enthralled all the way through to Sunday. Not so great golf courses, you can catch the back nine on Sunday and get a bit of a feel for the tournament. But Aussies in the field this week, obviously Cam Smith, Adam Scott, which we've mentioned. You wanted to chat a little bit about Lucas Herbert. We've got Minwoo Lee and Jason Day.
Yeah, 2018 was Herbie's first ever major, and he's done a couple of interviews in and around that, which are really worth a read, just because it shows the journey of a young, precocious, he's never lacked confidence, has Herbie, and he attacked that course with what he would probably, I'm paraphrasing, but maybe some reckless abandon. He didn't have the caddy that he has now, but he did say in the interview that he could have had Steve Williams on his bag and he wouldn't have listened back then. And so he'd ate him up and spat him out, but he's come a really long way since then. Sport loves a bit of a redemption story, a bit of a story arc, and this feels, I think it's his 18th or 19th major that he's going to be playing in now. This feels like an arc. He got his win on Liv. He's now won on 6 different tours, Lucas Herbert. He's into his 30s now. He's married. Life is in a really good place. He's got a great team around him. He's playing the best golf and most consistent golf of his career. I mean, he's in, I think, top 5 currently in the season for Liv. He's got he's got this US Open start because of his performances on the Liv Tour. I just think it's shaping up as a massive tournament for him. I still don't think the world has seen the best of him, and we've seen glimpses of it, but I feel like this is a stage for him to really show everything that he is all about. He's had moments in his career when he went head-to-head with Rory at the match play and took him all the way and almost caused that upset. You know, he's won, as I said, in 6 different tours. This just feels like it could be a full circle moment for him. So I'm really excited. Obviously the Bendio connection, which I harp on about, but
so he's your top Aussie?
Yeah, he is. I mean, everything you say about Adam Scott, there's no arguing with it, but I just feel like there's, and look, there's going to be, Adam Scott is the story and 100 majors. I mean, and for him to get maybe his second, I mean, that would just be
absolutely
one of the greatest moments in Australian sport. I feel like there's a moment for Lucas Herbert. It might not be a win, but it might be a very prominent finish. So I'm really excited for that.
Love it. Just a little background. As I said, I think Adam Scott's going to be our top Aussie for all the things that we mentioned earlier on. Just an elite ball striker. I think the older you get, the more equipped you are to handle tough tests like this. And I think that with that added length and just with some reasonable short game, as I said, he performed well last year. And I'm just barracking for this story. 2% win rate in majors sounds a lot better than 1% win rate. Now, obviously, Cam Smith has been going through some swing changes, still got his same team around him, but it'll be fascinating to see whether he can keep that great form going. Obviously, played well at Aronimik at the PGA last time around. He's been playing well on Live, so keep a close eye on him. Minwoo Lee, I think, has really improved his ball striking this year as well. And this is a golf course that, with his length, he doesn't necessarily have to hit driver everywhere. And that kind of hides probably the thing that was holding him back most in his game. So I think Minwoo Lee's a really good show for top Aussie as well. Great ball striker, incredible short game, good putter, really good mentally. And he doesn't shy away from the big moments either. So I think he certainly provides a strong case. The jump and elevation that his game has gone to this year has been something else. And Jason Day, I mean, incredible short game, obviously, but he said it himself a couple of weeks ago. He's just not sure where the ball's going at the moment. Obviously, performed well at the Masters earlier this year, but it'll be a bit of a tough ask if you're not sure where the ball's going. But incredibly talented player, obviously a major winner in his own right, so don't count him out of it. But fingers crossed. Let's hope all the Aussies go well this week.
All right, give us your top four. Well, your four main chances. Who are your four main chances? You don't have to give them in any particular order, but if like they do on the racing shows, they say these are my four selections as to who I think are the most likely to win. Who have you got?
I'll give you two, and then I'm going to give you guys that I don't think that will perform well.
Okay.
So my winner this week, I think, is Rory McIlroy. I think because of the strength, or because of the way that he's won his last two majors, the last two Masters that he's won, he knows he doesn't have to do things perfectly. So I think from a mentality or a head, like an emotional perspective, on the course at the moment, he feels like he can get away with making mistakes and still win. And I think those lessons that he learned at the Masters last year in particular really sets himself up for this week. And I think that when the going gets tough, unlike the Rory of old, the Rory of new, the tough gets going. This is a very similar style, of course, that we saw at Pinehurst number 2, where he came oh so close, ended up getting eclipsed by Bryson DeChambeau. But he's my tip for the week. I'll give you two more. You asked for four. Matty Fitzpatrick goes without saying. He's been playing incredibly well this year. And I'm going to give a tip of the cap to Siwoo Kim. He's my roughie this week. I think Siwoo Kim, with the ability that he's got in terms of his ball striking, is just in another stratosphere. As long as the putter cooperates this week, I'm barracking for this in terms of our President's Cup hopes. I want to see someone like Siwoo Kim go deep into Sunday, mate. What about you?
He's a good Callaway man. So I'm tossing up for the outright win between Scotty Scheffler. It just sometimes planets do align for people. Stories are there to be told. The script is written. And what a script that would be. The Grand Slam, Father's Day, 30th birthday. I mean, it's sort of maybe it sounds all too good to be true, but you just look at the statistics, and you've spoken about what you need to be good at on this course, and he is the top couple in all of them. So statistically, if you had to just pick on statistics, you just can't go past him. He's the favourite with the bookies as well. Matt Fitzpatrick, I'm with you 100%. Same reason. Look at those statistics. But the thing about him is he's so patient. He's so accurate. Putting is the concern. I think he ranks just outside the top 100, but that's on the improve. And it was markedly better at the Canadian Open. I think he was in the top 15 when I had a look at that for putting. So, he and temperament too. I mean, he doesn't take himself too seriously, does he? He doesn't take himself too seriously at all, Matt Fitzpatrick. So I think that holds him in really good stead. I mean, just when he was in that playoff with Scotty Scheffler at Harbour Town, he went up and introduced himself. Hi, Matt Fitzpatrick. I just thought, you're about to play for a pretty big purse. So I love that about him. I can't leave Rory out. I think I was tossing up, do I put Rory in or Rahm in? And the reason I'm putting Rory in is because I think John Rahm could win this, no worries. But what cost him at Aronimink was he was overly aggressive. If he can maybe temper that a little bit and maybe play it a little bit safer at times and just be happy with a par and manage that a little bit better, then I think he can absolutely win. But I'll put Rory in because Rory has talked about the fact that what you said, I don't need to be perfect, and I think I know now when I can press go and when I need to press pause. He's spoken about that pretty openly. So I've got Rory in my numbers as well. And my fourth choice, I'm actually going to put Russell Henley. Top 5 in the world. He was disappointing at Aronimink, didn't make the cut, but he won after that. All those stats that you've mentioned that are important, he rates very highly in. It's just one of those guys. Are we going to keep having the conversation about those guys who stay in the top 10 for their for such a large part of their career? And do they ever go on and win a major? From what you tell me about the course and what I see from him, I think that he could be a good roughie at about $41. Totally agree with you on Siwoo Kim as well. The putter is, it sort of always tends to come down to him, but there's nobody that puts it in a closer proximity more regularly than him when you look at those numbers throughout a large portion of this year. So, hard to leave him out of my four, and it was hard to leave Rahm out as well.
The ones that I've got my eye on in terms of the players that I feel like have the most pressure on them at the moment, and I'm curious to see how they perform. I mean, Bryson outside of Liv feels like he's been struggling a little bit. I think John Rahm, Bryson, Cam Smith, these guys from Liv just have so much noise in their head probably at the moment. From a professional golfer's standpoint, trying to prove a point to someone can be strong motivation, but it's really, really difficult when things away from home or away from the course that you want to perform really well on are uneasy. And I think these guys are carrying a lot of unease with everything that's going on in world golf. So I'm really fascinated to see whether or not John Rahm, Bryson, these guys actually perform this week. Yep. I'm not sure whether or not this is a great course fit for Bryson, just based on the quality of his iron play and where it's kind of been this year. The quality of his short stuff is really down, and you have to start to question whether or not, I mean, he won some majors doing it, getting all of that speed, whether or not that maybe all that speed has come at a little bit of a cost in terms of his technique, and whether or not it's had an impact on particularly his pitching and his short game stuff. So time will tell. I'm curious to see, but I'm laying those guys this week.
The time zone isn't, look, it's not always ideal for us. We're recording this at 7:25 p.m. It's 5:25 a.m. there at the moment, but it's going to be great viewing, and I can't wait for it to get started. What a time to be in New York at the moment. The New York Knicks have just won their first title since 1973. You've got the World Cup happening at the moment. How about those Socceroos? It is all happening in the world of sport at the moment. So what better time to have a major when some of the biggest events in sport are all happening in and around it? They'll be up and about, the New York fans as well. I hope they're on better behaviour than the New York Knicks fans who are setting light to the city as we speak. But
letting off fireworks in Times Square at 2 a.m, I heard. So
they're setting trucks on fire, Lynchy. There was a bloke who tried to stop them pulling out a street sign saying, "Why are we tearing up our own city?" And he got beat up for doing it.
God.
It never happens in Australia. Like, Hawthorn don't win a premiership and we don't set light to Glenferrie Oval. But for some reason...
There was some characters making a mess of Swan Street when Richmond finally got over the line.
Actually, that's true. Apart from Richmond fans, no one else burns down the city. Anyway, it's a different world. But we can't wait for this to get going. Hey, we're almost out of time. We've got a special guest coming up as well, Dr. Tina Maio, who's been a long-time osteo for Adam Scott. But you've got a Scramble question that we want to get into.
I don't want a piece of you. I want the whole thing.
I'm a great Scramble partner.
I don't want a piece of you. I want the whole thing.
Yeah, I did a few things here and there.
Yeah, so my Scramble question this week, as I alluded to off the top, was that Geoff Ogilvy, 2006 champion, 20 years ago, he won the US Open and he's having to qualify for this US Open Championship. The PGA, the Open Championship, and the Masters, obviously Masters is lifetime, but basically the other two you can kind of play until you're not able to compete anymore. And my question for you is it the right way to go the way the other majors have it, or is this the right way to go, giving every player in the world the opportunity to play the US Open, go and qualify, and no one gets special treatment outside the guys that automatically qualify?
Well, Lynchy, I was raised to respect your elders. That's something that was imparted onto me as a young man by my father and my grandfather. And I reckon that maybe the US Open needs to adhere to that as well. Respect your elders, respect your history. It is undignified, I think, and it is humiliating that on the 20th anniversary of Geoff Ogilvy doing what he did in the manner that he did it, that he is forced to qualify. I mean, in any other year, I don't think it sits right. But on an anniversary year of that, I just think it reflects pretty poorly on the organisation to maybe not have that deference to past champions in that manner. And if you're not going to do it for every winner every year, at least keep an eye on anniversaries. At least do that. At the very least, celebrate that moment in time and in history. So I think it reflects pretty poorly. I absolutely think that they need to have a look at that and maybe do a little bit better in that space, because we are nothing without the people that go before us, and the history that preceded us to where we are now should be honoured and celebrated every chance that we get.
It is tough to ask the question with the emotion attached to an Australian victory
and
well,
you have the personal attachment to this as well.
So you get 10 years as a US Open champion, and I think that the Masters does a pretty special job of a lifetime exemption, and the Open Championship, I think, is 60 or 65, something like that. I think it's okay for those two events to sit on their own. And I think that if it wasn't Geoff, to argue the opposite side of the coin here, I think that 10 years is fair enough. I think that 10 years could be fair enough for every other major as well if you're not able to qualify. I think that taking the perspective of the young up-and-coming player, I want more spots in the field for me to be able to get a crack at my national Open or the US Open as an international person. I don't mind it. I actually think that there's a dignity attached to, okay, you've had 10 years. If you're still able to, you're welcome to come and qualify for this great prestigious tournament. And I don't mind the fact that it throws the doors open and is a true Open. I would love to see Geoff participating, and if I had have won it myself, I'm sure that I would feel very differently. But taking the long-term perspective, I don't mind it.
Well, then, okay, if you were to get your way on that, then my caveat would be, if I'm to concede with you on that, then my caveat would be that, say, for the instance this weekend, then maybe get Retief Goosen and maybe get Geoff Ogilvy to hit the first tee shots or something along those lines to honour the anniversary of when Retief won at that course, and then the 20-year anniversary of Geoff winning. So the year anniversary and maybe a course anniversary as well should be honoured and celebrated in some way.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Brooks won the last one, to be fair, and he's playing.
No, I know, but he's already playing, so it doesn't,
Well, could be gone for the first tee shot. But yeah, no, look, as I said, if it wasn't Geoff Ogilvy, if it insert player name here, should Michael Campbell, the great New Zealand golfer, US Open champion, be getting a spot ahead of somebody like a Zach Blair, who seems to Monday qualify for the US Open every single year, when Michael Campbell's got the opportunity to go out and Monday qualify? It's an interesting scramble question, and I like your take. I think that you could go either way on it.
It's been a long episode, as we know, but a very special guest. We do have a confessional coming up to finish off the show, as always, on Course Language, thanks to Callaway. But Lynchy, you caught up a little earlier today with someone who's played a really pivotal role in everything that Adam Scott has been able to achieve in his career. 100th major. It's happening this week. He's in really good form. It's a really exciting time and an achievement that we should all be in golf and Australian sports celebrating in no uncertain terms. And Dr. Tina Maio has been his longtime osteo, and she sat down for a chat with you earlier today.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Course Language podcast. Very special guest today, Dr. Tina Maio. Second time on the podcast, Tina. Very excited to have you here, given that it is officially Adam Scott's 100th major in a row. Now, you have had an extensive history with many of the elite players from Australia and around the world as an osteopath, and we're just going to pick your brain a little bit today in terms of what things we need to be doing as golfers to keep our body moving and to create a little bit of longevity in this game injury-free. So thank you very much for joining us, Tina, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Now, let's jump straight into Adam Scott, obviously. He is the man of the moment. In your experience to play 100 majors in a row, over 20 years of professional golf, what's the likelihood that someone is able to compete at that level without any injuries during that time? We know how many injuries Tiger Woods has had over that period. Just explain to us how difficult it is to keep your body in that kind of shape.
Yeah, I mean, 100 consecutive majors is extraordinary, I think, for anybody. But I think, it demands so much, golf demands so much, just not just physically, but mentally as well. So if we think about, it's not as easy as just, a single trait or just preventing injuries. It's not that simple, really. I think there's much more at play, like their endurance physically, how efficient their nervous system is, how emotionally stable they are is also, I think, a really big factor for someone to play that long and that well. Their technical consistency, obviously, they need to be technically good, and to have a career-long performance like someone like Adam has had. And the other thing I think is you have to keep qualifying. You don't get to play majors consistently. And so, it is obviously staying healthy, but it's remaining good enough at golf for that long. So when we think about world rankings, we think about, other past majors and their performances, how many wins they've had, and, can they do that consistently to qualify? That's the first part that
Absolutely.
I think is phenomenal.
I mean, you're talking about someone who has one of the technically most beautiful looking swings of all time as well. And that comes down to his body in great detail as well, doesn't it? With the TPI system, he's, I believe, the only person who scores in the good range for every possible movement. Is that correct?
Yeah, so biomechanics, I think, for sure. But I think with a lot of those models, you've got to think that our genetics have a big part to play because they're based on arm lengths and leg lengths and trunk length. And, so those things are going to dictate how you're going to move anyway. So I think sometimes what we're born with, we have to take that into account. So fortunately for Adam, he's quite tall. He has long levers. He's got a good, strong physique. So that obviously works in his favor and allows him to have biomechanics that I suppose follow what models like the TPI or the Grays Institute or those sort of models that consider the ideal golf swing. But I think ultimately there's lots of players who don't have the same levers as Adam and still are biomechanically quite good and still quite efficient out on tour, much shorter players. And still it comes down to efficiency at the end of the day. But he has got an advantage being quite tall and long arms and long legs.
Absolutely. He's a physical beast. I mean, so you mentioned earlier on, I want to get into this topic of how important we now know the neurological stuff is in terms of the body. Adam's continued to put on length, which has been incredible into the later part of his career. I think he's swinging the club faster than he's ever swung it. Seems like he's hitting the ball longer than he's ever done it. Does that have anything to do with just muscle training or lead us into what that neurological pathways are?
Yeah, so it's a great question because we are understanding more about the impact of the brain on performance. And, the brain's the control center for the body. It controls everything we do. So the way we move, the way we breathe, everything. So we have different systems that do different things. But if we talk about a nervous system efficiency and neuroplastic changes in our brain, which basically means your brain's ability to adapt, reorganize, and rewire its neural connections. So in response to, different experiences we have, different things we're learning, and particularly when it comes to a golf swing where we're trying to consistently reproduce the same movement pattern over and over. These connections are so important, and the more we strengthen these connections, the more consistent we are. So someone who's played for decades with a solid swing has got good neuroplastic changes in their brain. So that's what we would say about someone like Adam or anyone who's playing at the elite level. Their ability to, for the brain to remember those patterns and those connections are really ingrained really well. So when movement's more efficient, if we talk about that, that means that less muscle tension is created in the body. So the more efficient you move, the more effortless your swing feels and the more effortless it appears. So lots of people comment on swings like Adam and say, gee, he looks so effortless when he swings. And he describes it as feeling effortless and he's not even trying, which is a great description for someone who hasn't got a lot of pressure on their nervous system. So things are very regulated. the system is not under pressure, the brain is very comfortable. So when we get uncomfortable, that's when things get pear-shaped with the putting too much stress on our body. So, but it also means less energy is wasted. That's the other thing. So you're conserving, when you've got to play, golf takes a long time. So you need to conserve as much energy as you can and to play back-to-back days and then back-to-back weeks. So, you know, you've got less stress on your joints, your recovery's better. All those things come down to how efficient your nervous system works. So the fact that we're understanding recovery better, we're understanding all these things better, and we're essentially saying, let's take more heat off your nervous system. Let's make your system more efficient. And therefore, all those things get better. So sequencing is better then, timing is better, you know, your ability to generate ground force is better, your kinetic chains are better, because the brain is responsible for all those things. And we're talking about like an automated movement to not be so conscious of your swing, I guess, needs to happen. To play efficiently, you need to play and not have too much conscious thought going into that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fascinating. So if I was to come down and we wanted to work on this, or some small aspects of this, obviously everyone's a little bit different, but just for an example, what are some of the methods that we use now, or what are some of the practices that we can put into play everyday players?
Yeah, so I think obviously working on regulation of the different parts of your brain. So we would teach you, we're using eyes a lot, you know, testing your eyes, and basically your visual system connects to the motor system of our brain, which is basically the part of our brain which tells us how to move. So what you're seeing and will determine your balance, what you're feeling through your feet. So eyes are very important. So we will test, like we do like neurological testing now, basically. So as well as physical testing, so not just mobility, not just strength, we're also adding neural testing now very much with any players who obviously need to improve in this space or need to improve their efficiency. So if you've had an injury at any point, those neuroplastic changes that I was talking about earlier that are important for connections, they also change if you've had an injury. So if you've had a prior back injury, your brain remembers that injury. So if you feel the slightest, you know, if you're making a turn and you feel the slightest niggle and you go, oh no, is that my back? And you get a bit like, people get fearful, and you've probably seen it as a coach in people that you're coaching.
Yeah.
Where the brain remembers that sensation. So there's a bit of panic and a bit of fear. And we have a threat center in our brain where we remember, you know, even bad stuff, you know, so emotionally, all of a sudden your anxiety goes up, stress is up, you know, all that's up. And then that changes the way your swing's going to happen because your brain's already like in cautious mode. So you're going to modify, you're going to find a way to move around that, right? So neuroplastic changes can be good or they can be bad. But we can train you out of those. We need to work out what networks in your brain have been affected. And we need to then go, we're going to target those. And some of that is through exercise. Some of that is through, you know, we can do it with brain stimulation. We can use it with eye lights that send information through to your brain via your eyes. So our sensory system, there's, you know, sensory information goes through our eyes and talks to our middle brain. So that information coming in helps regulate networks that are previously being dysregulated by pain or by, you know, something traumatic that may have happened for people.
Fascinating. And when we
really
do
cool.
see this stuff regularly, just even when we're coaching, things that you're mentioning in terms of tension, or if someone's had a knee injury or something like that, you can really see that they're, particularly the left knee for a right-hander, they're quite cautious moving into that side of things. So just as a little shout out as well, we'll put this in the show notes as well, but anyone can go and see you, can book in with you, Dr. Tina Maio, down at Coburg Osteopathy, or one of the many practitioners you've got working down there. I couldn't recommend you guys high enough. If this sounds like anything that you have dealt with in the past or currently dealing with that feels like it might be holding your game back, please book in and get going with all this, because the sooner you get this right, the longer you'll be able to play, right?
That's right. And if the better the nervous system regulates, right? So the really good players have really good regulation. So they can control things like anxiety, frustration, recovering from poor shots that, you know, players who are learning to play the game and get really frustrated and like, you know, throwing clubs and things like that, I think they're not regulating well. Their nervous system isn't regulating. So get that. That's why you feel that. But if you can get that under control and be emotionally a little bit more stable, it's going to help your game so much. So sometimes the physical injuries that they've had lead to that frustration as well, because it's like, I've had this pain for so long and it stops me playing and all those things. So we're finding more and more the connection between the mental, I guess, the brain and the body. So much more, really understanding it, I guess, and being able to explain to people that connection and the sorts of things they can do, and that it's the pain they're feeling is real. They're not imagining that this is the case, and that it explains why they're frustrated and why they're not getting to where they'd hope to be with their golf swing. It's a tough game, but if you've got all the systems working, it's much easier.
Well, all the systems will be being tested this week at the US Open at Shinnecock. It doesn't get any tougher a test than this, particularly if the wind blows. I mean, this is a brutal test. It's a big walk. There are some huge hills.
Yeah.
Talk us through a little bit of what doesn't need to be specific to Scotty, but how would generally players after long days on the golf course, hilly conditions, you're talking about mentally as well, you're dealing with just barrages of difficult up and downs, difficult second shots, stressful tee shots. All of this is, as you're saying, takes a toll on the human body.
Yes.
How would someone go about best case recovery processes after each round at the US Open?
Yeah, so when there's big weeks like majors, I think the chronic stress is like it's accumulative, right? So if you're not managing that well, it'll build and build, and then people will just things will blow up. But I think the recovery effectively afterwards. So obviously physically, there's different things like you can obviously nutritionally making sure they're eating and drinking and rehydrating, which is a big one. Mentally, I always talk about, we talk about meditation a lot and breathing and using that because breathing really regulates our nervous system, which is why, when people get stressed and people they say breathe in and breathe out and try and use your breath. So breathing in for say 4 seconds and then breathing out for 6 seconds. So if your out breath is longer than your in breath, it really helps regulate the brain talking to the rest of your body. So that's a really simple way for people to go, okay, I need to restore normal regulation through my brain. So if they've got devices to help with brain stimulation, they can use those to help reset nervous system. Otherwise, doing, hot and cold showers, that helps regulate things back in. And that all those things that we talk about, that's what we're essentially doing. We're restoring back to neutral, if you like, or back to where we started, so that the next day they feel fresh and they can go again. So physically and mentally for sure, but breath is a big one. We hold our breath a lot and our breath changes when we're very stressed.
And again, this is stuff that we can all do. So do you recommend guided meditation, or is there anything that you prefer over certain meditations than others?
Yeah, I think not everyone responds to the same tools. So I think having different types of things you can try is really important. So so some people guided meditation works. Some people, are quite good at, I think most golfers playing in a major, they're very disciplined people, so they're very routine people. So the warm up never changes, the cool down never changes, things are very set and, forget. But we've got to get that fight flight system going very quiet so they can feel like they're energized. But I think you need to just find what works. Some people, yoga works really well, listening to music works really well. So you just got to find things that help bring your, calm your nervous system down again. Yeah.
Such great stuff. Again, you can go and see Tina at Coburg Osteopathy or any of the clinicians she's got working with her. Just finishing, obviously, this is surrounding Adam Scott. You've worked at high levels, elite levels with many of the Australian pros that we all know and remember in the VIS programs, in Australian programs. Give us something that Adam Scott himself is about to play his 100th major, as we've spoken about. Give us a little, just something that he's said, or a way that he goes about doing things, or something that just clicked in your mind that was the recognition that this guy's just a little bit different. Can you give us anything there?
I think his ability to really keep things quite simple. So as complex as golf is, I think there's just, the simplicity of, he's very in tune with his body, obviously, and his awareness is next level. So being able to, he'd be able to tell you if he was standing there and there was more weight at the base of his big toe on the left foot. So I'm saying, the more work you do on your body, the more your awareness improves. So the more you can feel exactly what's going on. So if you're standing on a putting green and you're trying to work out which way things are leaning or where the pressure is more in your feet, I think having that really heightened awareness, but like being able to process that in a very simple way. So not overcomplicating things is probably, I think, something he does extremely well.
Excellent. And that obviously comes from years and years of following his programs, doing his stretching, being incredibly diligent with his body. That practice starts to come out. It's a little bit like, I guess, if I relate it to what I do in terms of somebody understanding where a closed face is or where an open face is, the more of that range that you've felt over a long period of time of practice, the better your awareness of where the club face will be throughout your swing. And you're saying it's exactly the same with your body.
Yeah, and if you've always been in that range of things being fairly consistent, as soon as something's out of that range, you know about it straight away because you've been consistent 98% of the time. So things don't get to go pear-shaped they don't go too far too often. So I think that's the key. The more consistent you become as a player, then the more that just keeps feeding itself. You know, that
completely highlights why he's played 100 majors in a row. Then he's probably going to feel if something's a little tighter or something needs work before it becomes a problem, right?
Exactly. And before it becomes an injury. So that's the key thing with anyone. You know, if we talk about injury prevention, and the only way you're going to be able to turn up to a major 100 times in a row is if you haven't had a major injury or you know, a life circumstance that's caused you to miss, you know, an event. Some players have obviously had, as well as rankings dropping and things like that. But that's what's ruined the streak for other people, if you look at that. And you compare, like you said, Tiger's had lots of issues, like lots of other players have pulled out with back pain. But it's not just elite skill, you know. We're talking about, as I said, an exceptional nervous system, really good biomechanics, really good, robust body so you don't get injured, being able to regulate your emotions. Like that's a big factor for me. I'm really big about the emotions, Ryan, but consistent motivation as well, consistently turning up to the gym all the time and being really diligent with your preparation and just long-term managing your health, right? So that's everything.
Absolutely.
Get your blood tests done, do all the right things, just make sure you're across anything before it becomes a real problem for people.
Absolutely. And it obviously highlights that he's not playing the game for money. Right, like he's got all the money in the world. He wants to win more of these majors. And that being said, Tina, what do you reckon? What are his chances like this week? How's he going to go at Shinnecock in his 100th major?
Well, good. I think he's had a couple of weeks off and he's been preparing well. So I think he'll be good. So yeah, I'm really excited to watch him play, and I'm going to get to catch up with him straight after it. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Brilliant. Well, we look forward to catching up with you and hearing about that. He keeps joking about it being he's won one major. It's 1% of 100, obviously. So let's hope he can get number two this week. It'd be an incredible story. And thank you very much for your time, Dr. Tina Maio. Again, go and see her, Coburg Osteopathy. Incredible practitioners down there as well. So thank you so much for your time, Tina, and your insights.
No worries. Good to see you.
You too. Thanks.
Brilliant job, Lynchy. Fantastic chat. What's the takeaway for you from all of that?
I think that the thing that we can take away from that conversation is just how important it is to make sure that you're regulated from a mental point of view, from a mental perspective, how important it is to quieten the mind, how important it is to rejuvenate the mind so as that the body can rejuvenate itself. I thought that was fascinating in terms of a lot of what she was saying was that, you know, Adam Scott understands his body to the umpteenth degree. I mean, he is a world-class athlete, but there's always improvements to be made to our neuroplasticity, improvements to be made in terms of how we recover and how much we emphasize or should be emphasizing a little bit of meditation or a hot and cold shower or something just to bring us back, even after a long day at work, just doing some breathing exercises, and how important that is and pivotal it is to be in the right frame of mind, to be the best dad you can be or the best husband you can be or just the best person you can be following on and just the best person Adam Scott could be to play 100 majors in a row. So no doubt he is very thankful to have Tina Maio in his corner.
And we're thankful to have had him do what he's done in Australian golf, and hopefully there's another chapter to be written. If it's not here, then the Open is still to come as well. He's always looked like Adam Scott, someone who should have more than one major, but to have played in 100 straight is just, I don't have the words to sum it. If all you need to say is that the only other person that's done it is Jack Nicklaus, that's all you need to say. So that's where he sits in rare air in the history of golf.
Not to pile on this, but like Jack Nicklaus won every major. So he was exempt for so long.
Oh, that's
like
a great
to be
point.
able to do this, only winning one major, just shows. Tina mentioned it in the interview as well, but just shows the level of competitive ability he's had over 25 years is just incredible. To not be guaranteed into any of these majors aside from the Masters, the level of play that he's been at for that long is just remarkable. To not be injured, to not have a life drama jump up during those times, and to play all of those majors is just incredible. And I know he laughs and mentions regularly when he's asked about it that 1% of majors he's performed in, he's ended up winning. Let's hope that he gets to 2% this week, because it would, as you said, be a story for the ages. But I don't think that realistically in Australia, we praise him really high. I don't think that he even gets the accolades that he deserves. He's just an absolute superstar of this sport.
So just to finish on that, Lynchy, I wanted to read this. I saw something very humorous on Instagram that Golf Digest put up about the last time Adam Scott wasn't in a major. Scotty Scheffler was 4 years old. Just let that sink in. The Fast and the Furious was the #1 movie in the world. The Baltimore Ravens had just won their first Super Bowl. Wikipedia had just been launched.
Unbelievable.
Tiger Woods had 6 major championships. And this is one that's going to make us all feel old. The Nokia 3310 was the most popular mobile phone. It's been a long time since Adam Scott wasn't in a major. Congratulations to Scotty.
Essendon were relevant as well.
What's that?
Essendon were relevant in the AFL as well.
Yeah, well, they were just about to get, June 14th, 2001, so they were just about to get beaten by the Brisbane Lions later that year.
Yep, we were in a grand final.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
Which means we had to win a final.
Yes, you did. You did. Good to see you haven't hung on to it. Have we got now, is it your turn for a confessional or is it mine?
I'm not sure. I've got one in the holster if you want me to go.
Fire away.
Please, anyone listening as well, fire in your golf course confessionals as well, your course language confessionals. Record yourself on our Instagram, send us a DM, send us an email, dob a mate in. They don't need to be crazy. This one's not too crazy either. It was from our golf trip recently. We had just finished playing at North Berwick and the Hearts game was on at the pub. So we'd driven back from North Berwick. The Hearts Celtics and the Rangers game was on. So it was all going on in town. Grabbed our clubs, jumped out. Now, I don't have a new enough car to have the key just be the thing that you need. I've got an ignition key. But fair to say that none of us were really prepared for this. But we got out of the car, bought our stuff up, locked it all up, sat inside for a minute, went down to the pub, had a great night, jumped in. We had to check out and we'd parked on the street and said to Shorey, "Oh, mate, where's the key? I'll start bringing stuff down to the car." You know, I don't have it. All right, Hainsey, where's the key, mate? I don't have it. Well, I don't have it. Has anyone seen the car key? No. Searching our bags high and low. This is the first day of our trip, second day of our trip. Oh, no. So we're thinking, okay, well, RACV equivalent. We're going to have to get somebody down. We're going to have to open up the car. Hopefully it's not stolen. Maybe we've left it in the car and someone's nicked the car. Anyway, lo and behold, it was about a 5-minute walk to where we parked the car. As it turns out, thankfully, the car key was in the dash. It was fully open. It was ready to drive off to whomever figured out that it was open. It was probably in a pretty touristy part of town. So thankfully, the car was still there and we lived to tell the tale. But there was a stressful hour or so looking for a car key. And it's been a while since I've lost a set of car keys and it's not a good feeling at all, Sammy.
No, that's and anyone. I mean, the amount of times that people, the amount of shit that you lose on a golf course because you put your phone down there and then you would cover. A golf course pro shop is the best lost and found that you'll ever go through, and you almost donated a set of car keys to it. So very nicely done. I've got an entry that we've had sent to us that I'm going to read out next week. And don't forget, if you are putting an entry in and letting us know your course language confessional, please dob in your mates because they deserve it anyway. But course language courselanguagepod@gmail.com, courselanguagepodcast@gmail.com, at courselanguagepod on Instagram. Every entry goes into the running to win a Callaway or Travis Matthew cap. We've got 6 of those up our sleeve. We're going to throw out to the best course language confessionals that we get for the rest of this season. So jump on board and get your hands on one of those. This is one of the hats, and it could be one of the ones that are behind us here. So we'd love to give those away to you just for your course language confessional. The funniest thing that's happened, the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you and a mate, the best thing that's happened to you on a golf course. You can pump up your own tyres as far as we're concerned. If you are going to Travis Matthew or OGO, those websites, please use Course Language 20 at the checkout to get yourself 20% off. Make sure you check out Callaway's deal at the moment too. If you buy a new Quantum driver, they've got the Chrome Tour golf balls, a dozen of those to give away to you. And if you buy 8 sets of the Quantum gear, they're going to give you a Callaway bag to carry them home in as well. Check all of that out on Callaway Australia's socials and on their website too, whenever you might go in and see them to get fitted as well. Funchy, Wongi and the whole team out at Rowville. Lynchy, it's going to be a great US Open. Can't wait to talk to you all about it next week, my friend. Remember, what happens on course plays on Course Language.
Can't wait. Hit 'em well.